All right, so how many of you know me? And you came anyway? My goodness. Huh. Well, that's a testament for the rest of you, that maybe it won't be too bad. I intentionally put up a very dark slide. I never use dark slides with my text, but I did for this one. I was trying to scare you a little bit. Did it work? Are you scared? Oh, I'm going to be standing in the way if I wander around, aren't I? They did that on purpose so I'd stay in my place. I hate being behind a podium. How about this? Okay, there we go. So I'm Judy Baker. I'm Dean of Online Learning at Foothill College, which is down the road from Stanford, up the road from Silicon Valley, and basically in the Bay Area. Do we have anybody from out of state? Yes, Bay Area, north of here. You heard of it? Okay, great. So doesn't count. It really doesn't. So, but I've been in the online learning business since '99 as an administrator and an instructional designer. But before that, I was a professor of health education at Texas Women's University. So I've seen life from both sides. And yeah, good for you. That's great. So I just wanted to give you a little background about me. So 3 things I want you to be able to have some takeaways for when you go to the next session, and the presenter says, what are your takeaways? You'll be able to state those. So 3 things. We're going to talk about all the wondrous things and dynamic things you can do with social media for instruction, and maybe then slide into maybe a few considerations or caveats that we might want to consider. And then we're going to crowdsource some solutions. I'll give you my recommendations and we'll crowdsource the solutions so no one of us has to do all the work. It's much easier to share the work. Agreed? Okay, I've already bought into it, Donna. We're in good shape. So I was going to do a poll everywhere, but we didn't download the app. So we're going to do this the old analog, old-fashioned way with our hands. But I was going to ask you to bring out your laptops and your smartphones, and you were going to text me your response to this. But you can just do it with your hands this time, and we'll let that go. So which one of these online services do you use for teaching? How many of you use Dropbox? Yes, an old standby. How about Google Drive? Oh, Michelle, come on. YouTube? I see. Blogger? Oh, really? Only 2 bloggers. Facebook for teaching, not for personal. Oh, all right. SurveyMonkey. So Twitter. How many tweeters do we have? Not tweeters. Oh, yeah. All right. Twitterers. Okay. All right. SlideShare. I saw your SlideShare got loaded this morning. So it looks like we do have a fair amount of participation in social media already. So tell me about that. How are you using all of these services for instruction? Can somebody give me an example? Yes. Scott, right? Google Drive, Google Drive for form, share with your students, and presentation. So this is just 2 out of many other fantastic and wondrous ways that we can actually leverage EdTech, the cloud, these online services to engage our students, to make the content interesting. So I was curious about this at my own district, Foothill being the community college district, and I had about 100 people, 120 people to respond to this out of the district, which was about a quarter of the people who could have responded. And of the people who responded, almost 60% of them said they are using social media or some kind of a cloud service for instructional purposes. And I didn't do a lot of defining. I let them define it for themselves. And the winner of the different kinds of services turns out to be YouTube in the Foothill De Anza Community College District. That was the big winner. That's the one tool that a lot of faculty are using, and probably for presentation purposes. But there's some faculty who are asking their students to create videos and post them in YouTube. So it goes beyond just the teacher using these tools, where often we are assigning our students to use these tools. And then, of course, Google Docs and Google Plus was another winner. And, of course, the ever-present textbook publisher website, which is a whole other issue that we won't get into today, but it was on the survey. I thought I'd report that. And then there's SurveyMonkey, and are we losing me again? All right, SurveyMonkey and Dropbox, Facebook, and then Turnitin, because we finally broke down and bought a license for everybody to use. So that just gives you a smattering of what's going on in our district, and odds are your district or your college is probably very similar. That we could bury our heads in the sand and think that it's only the early adopters or it's only a handful of people, but in reality, a lot of our faculty are using these services. Some are very good at it and are very savvy, but there are plenty of others who may not be using these services appropriately. So because I'm on the dark side as an administrator, I'm the one who has risk aversion, and I'm worried about any kind of lawsuits that we could get, or federal law, violations of federal law. So I have to worry about that. And the other question, among many other questions we asked on the survey, is why are they using it? It's a real pain sometimes to make an assignment where the student has to use something other than your course management system. There must be some motivation. Well, they were saying that turns out there's a lot of multimedia content that's really hard to show in your course management system. It may not allow you to upload anything bigger than 30 megabytes. Well, then how are you going to upload anything that's media rich? But it's also, what's curious is the instructors discovering that some of these tools are really great at engaging the students in some true communication, debate. It's just not possible even in some of the best learning management systems. So the faculty are doing what they do best. They're going around, they're looking for the tools they need to get the job done. They don't really care whether it's SurveyMonkey or SurveyGizmo or whatever. They just want something where the students can learn how to collect data and then analyze it and write a report. We don't care what the tool is. If it's in the course management system, that would be great, but it's not. So faculty are doing what they do best, is go scrounge around. Remember we used to collect egg cartons and we used to collect toilet paper rolls so we could have hands-on experiential group activities. We did whatever we did with what little money and resources we had. And today, instead of egg cartons and toilet paper rolls, what we do is we collect digital tools. And that means social media and cloud services. Faculty basically are trying to meet the demand that they're hearing from their students as well. Students are coming in from elementary school, high school, having already used some of these tools, even if they're not using them in their classes, they're using them at home. They're sharing their photographs and their videos with their grandparents on something, YouTube or whatever it is, or Flickr, or Instagram, whatever the thing is, Snapchat. And they walked into our college classrooms and the instructor's not using any of it. They're falling asleep because they're used to having all these amazing tools to be able to do whatever they want. And we're shutting them down and saying, turn in your smartphone, pile it in the back on the table, and close your laptop. We're just going to do it with the chalk and the blackboard. You lost them. So on the flip side, the instructors also want the students to start learning how to use these tools. The tools that are out there today may not be available, maybe 10 times better a year from now, a couple of years from now, but we want them to get used to just the idea of using digital tools and being comfortable with them. We certainly want all of that for them. And then there are just some tools that in this day and age, if you want to be successful in some professions, you have to learn how to use a spreadsheet or Peachtree, or you have to learn how to use Flickr if you or LinkedIn if you want to get a job. Now you better understand how LinkedIn works and how to make a decent profile. So in lots of ways, we really can't avoid the use of social media and cloud services as a teacher in today's world. Have I made my case for that? Everybody convinced? And you've already given me some examples. Some other examples, of course, are Google, where there's ways to leverage Google for team projects that in some course management systems, trying to get students to work in groups is just a recipe for disaster and frustration. Whereas in Google, you can set up groups very easily. Students with enough preparation are well prepared for that. And you'd be surprised what you can generate without having to hassle through your course management system. And certainly help the students develop some collaboration skills. Just some other examples I mentioned before about students learning how to collect data in their careers. They're going to have to know how to have these skills. Facebook certainly is another way to post announcements if you're not comfortable with your course management system. There are ways to use Facebook for this. I've not done it, but I've heard there are ways. Certainly Twitter. Is anybody tweeting right now as a back channel? Thank you very much. So in your classes, you could, for example, have the students maintain back channel, so in a way it's taking notes in class. And if you have a hashtag for your class, then everybody's tweeting as the class goes on in a back channel, and then everybody just goes to Twitter, looks for that hashtag for your class, and all the class notes are there. Everybody's taking notes, and it kept them engaged. It was just one of many ways that you could use Twitter. I feel like I'm preaching to the choir here. I'm just trying to give you some examples of all the different ways that social media and cloud services can be used. When I present this to administrators, I have to go through this chapter and verse. Yes, there are wonderful pedagogical reasons to use these. That's why we can't ignore it and just say, no, you cannot use them. So I probably don't need to go on and on. But let me give you a scenario. Do any of you use blogs for teaching? Any of you use blogs? And in this scenario, I have the instructor is telling the students that they need to create blogs, and they need to reflect on the topic each week, whatever is readings and lecture and student presentations. Reflect on it and put it in their blogs. And then in the course management system, there's a web page that has links to all of the students' blogs. And she's decided that they get to use whatever blogging tool they want, because some of them already came to class having a blog. They could use WordPress or Blogger or any of the other kinds of blogging tools out there. Sounds like a great idea. Reflection is a very powerful way to learn. They're practicing writing. So what's wrong with this scenario? Well, depends on what they put in those blogs. Remember, that instructor does not have any control over those blogs, does not have moderation control, nothing. The students might be posting things or reflecting on what happened in class or what's in the readings. And sometimes students start telling their own stories. They start telling their own stories with their complete name, the name of the course they're in, and they start disclosing all kinds of other information. And depending on how your campus tends to interpret FERPA, could be an issue, might not be, it depends. But the bigger issue is that provider, whoever that, whether it's WordPress or Blogger or whatever, how do we know how they're handling the private information that the students use when they set up that account? Things to think about. And Stacy just discovered that we need to comply with federal accessibility laws, right, Scott? Yes. Stacy and Scott are on top of this. But are these blogging services or the Twitter services or Flickr or whatever, are they accessible? And then I was thinking, is Poll Everywhere, is that accessible? I don't know, I forgot to check. Turns out some of the most unlikely candidates actually are not accessible. And usually if they have some kind of form on the page, you have to label your forms in a certain way, and otherwise you fail at accessibility. So that's not even easy to figure out. But have we ever, do we think to check on that? All right. The other one is, again, you're not, in this scenario, she's not moderating what they post. And if they post Mickey Mouse, there could be a takedown order. And if you post copyrighted, let's say she's using YouTube for the assignment, and you post, you steal, let's say there was a great PBS special, and you copy it in some way, and then you post it. That's a copyright violation. Your student has committed a copyright violation. Whose fault is that? Is it the student, the instructor, or the college? Depends on who has the deepest pockets. The school, yeah, the student has no money, so what about it? But it's a hassle. Have any of you ever had to deal with a takedown order? I did one just last week. Faculty member has been posting all kinds of content that does not belong to that person. I mean, we're talking pages and pages and dozens of documents and books. And he said, well, that's not a violation. Yes, it is. But I paid for those books. You know, you paid for them, but you better not be posting them on my server. You're taking, and I didn't even wait for him. I just took it down and eliminated his account because he clearly didn't understand copyright. So those are some issues to think about. So this blogging assignment, again, with some of these services, these cloud services, they have very interesting terms of use or terms and conditions. And in many of them, it turns out that you get the student or the person using the service gets to keep copyright the content, but it's also granting permission to YouTube or Blogger or whoever it is to use the content in any way they wish. And by virtue of using the service, you've just given over your content. And you don't have any control how they choose to use your content. You may not be happy with how they put it, depending on if they inserted in a web page with all kinds of other messages around it that were contrary to your point, maybe. And then what about all those services? Have you ever joined a service and you spend a lot of time learning how to use it, and you set up lessons, and then lo and behold, it got bought up by Google or somebody, and it knows that service is no longer available? You know? I did something called KNOL for Google, NOL for Google, and I created a lot of them, and then they eliminated it. It was one of their experimental services. So what happens if that service goes out of business in the middle of your semester, and they were getting graded on it? Uh-oh. What are you going to do for the grade? Something to think about. So everybody loves cartoons. So this cartoon says, I didn't do my homework because I forgot my username and password. Does that sound familiar? It's a cartoon, but it's actually all too true. Right, Jonathan? He spends half his life dealing with people who've forgotten their passwords. Not half your life? 90% of your life. Yes, okay. Hey, you're having them join some service. Are you now the tech support? Are you going to have to help them figure out reset their password? As an instructor, do you want to spend your time dealing with their lost password or username or usernames that are inappropriate? Suddenly, when you start using these tools, you now have become tech support for your students. Not in your job description, but nonetheless. When you adopt one of these tools, these social media tools or cloud services, you take on a lot of responsibility you may not be aware of, and this is one of them. And believe me, I run a help desk, and having to deal with people's password woes is just not rewarding. It's not a rewarding career choice. So here's the question. How many of you have read the terms of use for Facebook verbatim? But you did read it? Glance through it. How many of you read terms of use for YouTube? I forced myself last night. It was a good way to get to sleep, too. I forced myself to read the whole YouTube because of the presentation about the Amara, because some statements were made about the YouTube agreement, and I wanted to read it for myself. So I forced myself. It's really long. I meant to time myself, but I didn't. What was your takeaway? Oh, my takeaway was you do give up your right to the content. I mean, you own your the copyright of your content, but they can use it any way they want. And when you delete it, you don't, it's not really deleted, it's still on their servers. When you delete it, they can't present it, but they can still keep it on their servers. Yes, even if it's private, yes, oh yes. So you might want, here's the thing, you might want to read that fine print, because it's one thing if it's you making these kinds of decisions and adopting these social media services, but you're requiring your student to adopt these services for a grade, so you now have responsibility that you aren't making them sign up for something that they may regret. And in fact, you may get at my college, we actually have some students who have a lot of legal background, and they do challenge the terms of use. They say, well, wait a minute, I'm not going to do this YouTube assignment. I don't agree to the terms of use. So those are some factors, and it is daunting to read those, but you need to be careful about what you use. The good news is, I mean, I force myself to read the YouTube one, but I don't really want to go read the Twitter one. I don't want to read the Blogger one. I don't want to read the Google one. And they change, right? So how are we going to keep up with this? Well, you've heard of too long didn't read, too long colon didn't read. Have you ever heard of that one? Google it sometime. There's also terms of service didn't read, which is all of us, inevitably. So we click on it all the time, and we never read it. So we're lying, essentially, all the time. But here's the good news, and I made it big on purpose. This is a website. It's http://TOSDR, which stands for Terms of Service Didn't Read, TOSDR.org. And what does it do for us? Yay! Yay! I mean, this is wonderful, and they update it too. So the beauty of it is they take some of the major cloud services, social media tools, and if you click on the actual tool itself, it goes on and on about what they love and hate about it. You know, the thumbs up and the thumbs down and the X. There's some TV show that does an X. I don't know. Do you have talent or something? But it gives you a nice visual cue with the thumbs up and the thumbs down, but it explains, oh, what do you need to be aware of about this one that you may not have been aware of? It puts the terms of use in human language. I'm not saying don't use it, I'm just saying be aware of what it's doing and what it isn't doing. So you don't have to really read the terms of use verbatim if you trust this site. Check it out, see if you like it. Oh, look how many thumbs down YouTube got, Facebook got. Oh, the big one that these services fail on is they reserve the right to change the terms of use at any time without notice. So you're screwed, even if you have read it, because they can put anything they want on it. And they do, a lot of times they'll say, our services may be, or our company may be bought up by someone else. So we have no control over what happens to your data after that happens. So basically, you don't know what you're really agreeing to. And then another one is they'll say, oh, all that private data that you just gave to us, well, it's on a server in another country. And, well, we have no control about anything that happens in that country, like a war or a takeover by Russia, or whatever it is. So you might want to really think these through. Here's the one about Google. Ooh, the evil empire. Look at all these thumbs down. So if you don't believe me yet, if I haven't convinced you that you need to be savvy about this, I want you to watch this video. Terms and conditions may apply. So it's like a documentary, like one of those Michael Moore things. So if you don't like Michael Moore, you won't like this. But you know, you either love him or hate him, I guess. But don't just skip to the good part. Skip to minutes 3:15 to 6:15 at this video. And I haven't read the terms of use for Vimeo. Sorry. So it's vimeo.com/730798344. and I believe this is available to you on the somewhere, the slideshow, so you'll get that URL if you don't have it now. But it's worth a watch if you're not convinced yet of the perils of using a social media tool without being aware of the issues. So what are the concerns? Well, my top concern, of course, is privacy, because I'm an administrator. That's all I care about is privacy and FERPA. I actually care about a lot more, but this is the top concern, that when some of these systems crash and burn, and they do, how do we get the data retrieval? In other words, the students' work, their assignment. How do we get that back? The other big issue you may not be aware of is under the Higher Education Authorization Act, we have to verify that the students who are taking our online courses are actually the same people who are getting the grade on the transcript, because you know they could be two totally different people, right? Has that occurred to you? Yes, there are fraud rings out there who would love to dupe you into thinking that they're one and the same. So, and unfortunately, when you use one of these social media tools, there's not much way for you to really authenticate who's using it. It's probably their dog that's doing the assignment, or their neighbor, or whoever they can pay, or you know, all these services that are available on the internet that will do it for you. So there is an issue around that. Whereas in your course management system, theoretically the student has an ID and a unique password, and that's how you've authenticated, which of course isn't really, but the feds are accepting that for now as authentication. And then I already mentioned the issue around turning yourself into a tech help desk for password recovery if you start using some of these services. And then we mentioned before issues with accessibility. There isn't a wonderful site that goes through all of these social media services and tells you thumbs up, thumbs down, is it accessible? The reason being is lots of different definitions of accessible, lots of criteria, but also they change all the time. You could never keep up with it. But I have concerns about the copyright, which I mentioned earlier. Another issue you may not have thought about is the student frustration, because they're going from your course management system, your student information system, and then they're going to this social media site, which has a whole different navigation and a whole different username and password, and going back and forth, and it starts getting a little bit, for some of our students, that's overwhelming. For some of them, it doesn't faze them at all. But we need to be aware that we're adding to frustration with that. I have a pet peeve about advertisement. There's some people, I talked to, who's the student person who is so into open educational resources. Anyway, she insists advertising is okay if it makes the textbook free. There's something about ads that paired with instructions, I don't know, that gets me. And my concern is the way some of the search engines work is they're looking at what you search for, and then you get ads that are related to what you've searched for. Well, let's say you're teaching women's health, which I used to do. Well, you start getting ads for breast enlargement, along with the assignment and the lesson and the activity. Is that really what I want in my women's health students to be getting? So, so you might want to think about whether you want ads shown to your students when you have them using some of these social services, because you don't have any control necessarily over. There are ways to suppress that, particularly in Google, but you'd have to go read all the instructions about how to do that, or give your students instructions. The other thing you may not be aware of, your college probably doesn't want you using their logo on some of these social media sites. I create social media cloud service sites for Foothill all the time. Nobody's ever said, and I grab our logo and I put it up there. Nobody's ever said a word to me in 8 years. They should. I never got permission to use our logo. Now, fortunately, nobody knows about all these sites because I'm just practicing and fooling around and I take them down. But I wanted to see how the logo would look in this cloud service that they let me set up. I always get the pilot free one that only lasts for 3 days. So, but if you use your college logo in when you set up a site in Edmodo or Schoology or wherever it is you're setting it up, you better get permission, because it may come back to haunt you if they need some excuse to slap you on the wrist. That's one. So think about that. So I summarized some of these for you, so when you pull down the slideshow, you can have the summary. You shouldn't have to memorize this. And this isn't all of it. I just pulled out the highlights. But it's not like they're all bad or they're all good and they all have the same issue. It's different. And then I did this a month ago. It could be these have changed now. It's hard. You got to keep up with this. So, and it's not just in higher education or among educators. The polls done across the country show that everybody's concerned about personal privacy in these social media sites. People are becoming more and more aware of these issues. So it's not just me being paranoid. There are a lot of other people who would agree with me. And the top concern includes whether other people can see class discussions, for example, student privacy and confidentiality for the work that they're doing when they're most vulnerable. They're learning this. Do they want other people perhaps to be able to see it? Some other concerns about the integrity of these companies and whether they're going to maintain the privacy. So those are just some other concerns that are out there. I suggest that maybe we need to have some dialogue on our own campuses about effective practices, because let's face it, we need to use these tools. They provide wonderful ways for us to engage our students, so we don't want to just throw them out because there's these concerns. So we need to figure out the workarounds. What can we do to mitigate those concerns? And, you know, educate our students. It's a teachable moment. Let's teach them about that. When I am asking you to use YouTube, but you need to be aware of this, this, and this. And, by the way, be aware of this anytime you join one of these groups, these services. And then maybe, just maybe, we need to develop some guidelines for our campuses. So I think I put it on the next slide. So my biggest suggestion is what? Yeah, sorry about that. Read it once, at least glance at it. Don't just click and go. Can you at least read the thing? If you're really going to use it as an assignment, you may be surprised that you're giving away the farm, or you're giving away your students' content, even worse, without their permission. They need to be aware of what you're doing. So at this point, I'm asking you, do you think that your campus needs some kind of a social media policy for use of these tools in your classes? Yes?
Yeah, I'm hearing it, so I just do traditional person more than content and
So Mary Ann says that, oh, definitely we need to set up a committee to set up these policies. Now I want to hear from some faculty out there. What do you think about administrators coming in and saying there's a social media policy and thou shalt not send students to Flickr? Yes, you're the first with your hand up.
Well, I think so I have serious reservations about not limiting any kind of policy limiting students. They were said you're going to use social media and that's why you see, well then with that means my students, you know, then maybe they're recording
There you go, Steve.
I think it's just half but it's just really, really critical because you actually follow the path
If I could add a graphic to the slide, it would be can of worms. Yes, where does it stop? Yes. So, opposite sides. Yes, Michelle.
I think the key here is dialogue about the key. Because, I mean, as we all know, we don't talk about things until they fester, and they become these unspoken problems that just start to turn into huge.
Let's decide behind closed doors
and
impose it.
You have to.
It's in the summer.
Conversation. And I think that there's just so many people that are just afraid and unsure, and so they're either doing it and not telling anyone because they don't know who to go to. They know they're probably doing something.
There's more.
Or they're too afraid to try, and so they're just avoiding using anything that they know is relevant, but they just are afraid to touch it. And so we have to just have a conversation and figure out what we need.
And I think Michelle makes the point that it does take some dialogue. There isn't the absolute best social media policies for all of our colleges. It's the dialogue, it's the process that's important. And we need to be careful not to throw that baby out, you know, free speech and so on. So this is not an easy question, and this is the question I want you to take home with you to your college, because a lot of colleges just want to pretend like they don't need to deal with it. But it will eventually rear its ugly head, and you will wish that you had that policy. We're still working on one at Foothill De Anza. We don't have one. You know, I'm not walking my talk here. So I promised that we would crowdsource some answers for you. So all of those questions that I had up on the slides are on this sheet of paper. And I don't know, how much time do we have left? Do we have any time left? Oh, we have 20, perfect. So what I would like to do is crowdsource the answers to these questions. So if you think that you're going to be using YouTube for your assignments, then I'd like you to go into this corner of the room. If you're going to be using Twitter for your instruction, let's get up and go over to this side of the room. No? Okay. If you're going to be using some kind of a blogging tool, it's over this side of the room. If you're going to use, what was the other one? YouTube. Already said. Okay. How about SurveyMonkey or SurveyGizmo? Oh, do any of you use, or Dropbox? Read the terms of use. Read the terms of use. Okay. So, in your groups, what I want you to do is, this is YouTube? Yeah. For the YouTubers, I want you, these are yes/no questions. How hard can it be? So if you guys will we're going to crowdsource this, put your heads together and just tell us yes or no, then we can share with the other people, and then we don't have to go do it for each one of these. We can pool our resources. So you'll solve the YouTube conundrum, you're solving Twitter over here, you're solving Dropbox or survey thing, and over here was Blogger, your bloggers?
No, we're Google Drive.
Yes, which drive? Google? Yeah, that'd be great. I love Google, but I also hate Google. So we have a love-hate relationship. So if you will crowdsource the answers, we can share the results. So you're the Twitter group over here? Okay, Twitterers. Does this service provide any free tech support or password recovery for students? Well, there you go. Yes, that was easy. So, does it require our campus lab computers to be outfitted in any way? Okay. And it can be used on an iPhone, iPad? Okay, because Flash can't be, and that's some of these services are in Flash. Yeah. Well, we're trying to decide whether to adopt this or not. So, will the faculty have access to the work if the service goes down? It's really hard to pull anything, all that stuff that you posted on Twitter for years. There are services that will get it for you, but it's a real pain. So the thing is, you're going to have to tell them, you keep a copy of what you post. See? Yeah. Yeah, but you have to do the research, give them the instructions. It's not built in. Exactly. And good luck getting them to understand all that. And I'm not installing anything on my computer. Besides, I don't have a computer. It's my friend's computer. Or the lab computer. So, I know you do. Do they do it? I want it built into whatever it is I would prefer that it be built in. Yes? If you're going to assign one of these things, you have to do all of these things. Well, yeah, well, will the faculty put up with that?
They've all signed it now.
Yeah. 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 Well, I'm going to check the other groups. Keep on going down the list. You're doing great. Okay. So where are we on the list?
Still on the third question.
Will is this YouTube? Yeah. Will the student have access to the work if the service goes down? Oh, how are you going to grade the YouTube they created if it goes down?
I've had Blackboard go down.
Exactly.
So really, I mean, you're not learning management system.
So that's not going to make or break your decision to adopt?
No.
And we just remind everybody to make their own copy before they post.
Think about it.
Yeah. I would include it in your assignment or your syllabus. Just things always can go wrong. Make a backup before you post anywhere if you want to get graded on it. Okay. Is the service website in compliance?
It's pretty good, actually. They provide
If it's
transcripts.
yeah, the automatic, no, that's not acceptable. Under
Really good audio. I've had
yeah, but legally we have to provide a closed captioning for all of our YouTubes that we send our students to, and that's very difficult. I understand that, but you need to be thinking about that as well. And maybe if you have to go to a workshop about it or get training, or make it optional.
They're not required for online content, only for test content. Text that is synchronized is required. So we can use subtitles.
Yes. Yes. That's what.
You're right. You get some very bizarre transcripts.
Yeah. Yeah. So be thinking about if you want to hassle with that, because you will have your campus disability resource center coming after you at some point, and you're going to need some grant or some assistance to get something captioned. The best thing to do is there is a way to search in YouTube for captioned content. So usually whatever concept you're trying to get across in this video, odds are there are 100 other videos, well, not as well, but at least it's captioned. So do a search looking for the captioned video. And if you need to know how to do that, just email me, and I'll let you know. So that's probably the biggest concern I have about YouTube is the risk of having things that aren't accessible. Oh, the copyright one. Ouch.
Well, now, I mean, I know they say that if you're like basically you're running master and under 10 minutes, you can use those videos.
Is that true?
If you break it down to like
It's not literally 10 minutes. It's a small portion of the work, of the creative work. It's not 10 minutes. People will say, yeah, but people like to have a definitive, no, what if the actual whole thing is 11 minutes? And you're saying, oh, 10 minutes is okay. No, it has to be a small portion of the complete work. So, oh, yeah, of a 3-hour, 2.5 hour, but.
I like your idea of having this discussion about copyright, though. That's
Yeah,
cool. That should be a whole.
because students need to learn about this anyway.
What's the name that's on the bottom right-hand corner in a YouTube video that says you're allowed to use that video?
Oh, Creative Commons licensing?
Thank you.
Yeah, it's called Creative Commons. Just do a Google search, and it would be lovely if everyone could put a Creative Commons license on their work. I do.
And that means that I would be able to
You can use,
show your work during my class. There's not a copyright.
yeah, I have people email me and say, can I have permission? Of course, it's already, it says openly licensed, but they still ask me, which is a throwback. That's the whole point, is you don't have to track me down and wait for my response. You just do it. So yes, look, you can do searches for creative content, Creative Commons content in YouTube as well.
Where do you put your search at?
There's
With the engine stuff?
if you go to advanced search in YouTube, that's where you do it. And if you just put in those terms in Google, it'll give you instructions. Yeah. What?
It would be copyrighted.
Well, you still, whoever created it owns the copyright, but as soon as you post it to YouTube, they are allowed to use it, whatever, if they want to use it for advertising.
But you still retain the copyright.
You retain the copyright, but you've given them permission to use it.
The way this is worded, they've seen us in package, you can retain copyright.
Yes, but there's some of these services where it's revoked. You don't have any copyright. You have given over copy. Some of these photo streaming services, suddenly they own your photos. Did you know that? You read it. Some of those, wow, they now own your photos that you took because you wanted to use their lovely little service, slideshow service. So let me go check on my other groups. What are we doing over here? 10 minutes left. Okay. Where are we on the list? Are you going to... Yes. They're aware of it, though. They know that they're having problems with that. Yeah. I mean, almost every day they tweak some little thing and it gets better. But we, as consumers, have to harangue them. They need to hear it from us. Yeah. Form labels. It's a certain tag you put in the... Yeah, I've never checked it. Yeah. The thing is, you know, you have to be superhuman to be able to answer all of these questions positively. So it's not going to be perfect. The issue is, what can you live with? And how can you work around it, right? Yes. Because if you start teaching or developing your online courses to the lowest common denominator, we would have nothing but black and white little web pages with text on it. You know, we have to keep it engaging, yes, for everyone. Yeah. 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 Right. It's just going to be more work. Yeah.
But most of
be aware of it.
Operating systems have a sensibility feature that you can turn that on and off, so that it's not necessarily our responsibility, but that it's in all of the operating systems.
Yeah. And the other issue is, you have students who were recently disabled and they don't have all the equipment yet, or they don't know how to use their screen reader yet, or whatever it is. So you know that in our colleges we have the continuum of students. You may have just come back from war with your whatever trauma or disability. You haven't even adjusted. So we could be doing all the accommodation and accessibility we want, and the student's still not going to be able to get the content. And that's where it comes down to one-on-one with that student and your disability resource center. So there isn't a quick, easy solution, which is what everybody wants. It doesn't exist. And there is no perfect cloud service or social media. There's none that are perfect. So just get over that and decide what can you live with and what can you work around. Oh, no, none of them. Yeah, clearly. So that's really the takeaway I wanted you to get from this is, and it's tedious going down this list, and I know it's probably making you more and more anxious, but no, it's really, these are teachable moments because our students do need, and we need to know about copyright for our future careers. We need to know about accessibility. We need to know about legal issues in terms of use. If nothing else, your assignment for them to use the social media is now they know that there's a terms of use that they should be aware of. They never even noticed it before. So there's always something to gain, even if it's maybe not what you intended from that assignment. So I'm not saying that really social media or cloud services are horrible. I'm just saying we need to be aware of their limitations and do the best we can when we use them. Foothill? I don't know Deanza.
Someone in conflict, a sort of close awareness of technology. I mean, I think
I did this presentation at my dean's meeting a few months ago. Nothing's happened. We have no social media policy.
So there is no policy anywhere.
What's going to happen is there's going to be a lawsuit for some copyright violation or some accessibility, or some student's going to get really annoyed that they gave away their content, or it went down and they got an F because they lost all their assignments. So, oh, I guess we're reconvening now. So it's going to take a crisis, I think. So have I motivated you to go back and talk about some kind of a social media policy? I'm not saying you have to have one, but at least talk about it. Have any of you decided, oh man, it's too much trouble, I'm not going to use any of these cloud services? You're not going to do that, right? You're not going to just toss it out. But young people left. But you're going to be a little bit more cognizant, you're going to be more careful as you use these. Maybe you need to tweak your... Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I guess I need to ask you to stop your private conversations and listen to only me because I'm the fount of wisdom. How's that? Does that do it for you, Donna? All right. I don't personally believe in that, but apparently CCC conferred us. They only like one person talking at a time. So probably some takeaways would be that you're going to have to tweak your assignments if you're going to ask your students to use these tools or you're using them in some way for your online course teaching. And it may not work the first time. You may have to experiment. But I think you also saw the benefits of crowdsourcing. When you got into your groups, did somebody spark an idea that hadn't occurred to you before in your discussions? Exactly. So the idea here is go back to your campus, because one campus is going to be different than the next. Certainly Foothill and Deanza are, and we would never agree on the same social media policy, ever. So what's important to one campus isn't to another, but certainly you could come up with some best practices. It doesn't have to be a policy. I like to have policies for everything. How about some best practices? For those of us who are going to use YouTube or Twitter or blog or Dropbox, let's come up with some best practices or effective practices or better practices and share those and see what works best for each of us. Yes?
I was just thinking, what we talked about doing the best practices, at least if something came up, then you can say, well, look, we made a decision that we thought would be best for everyone and it's happening. At least you said that you made a daily effort to...
Right, you showed good faith, due diligence,
right.
And it's going to change. Next year, there are going to be a whole other host of cloud services that may present a whole other set of challenges that we haven't even thought about. So there's always that. Yes?
You started this off by like a risk aversion, you know, as a manager or as an administrator. And then now we propose a good practices versus a policy. Do you have, from a legal perspective, you know, like if we got sued, is it better to have a policy, which seems to be really rigid? Well, best practices, which seems to be, it probably doesn't make a difference for what or anything.
Well, as many of you know, we very, very rarely go to court. As institutions of higher education, we settle it outside of court. But I think due diligence is probably just as good as a policy. I'm not a lawyer. My brother is a judge, but I'm not a lawyer. And I think that we did the best we could at the time to provide quality instruction with the tools that are available, such as they are. The thing is, the odds are the policy is going to be flawed. And there's always going to be exceptions to the policy anyway. Why not just make it best practices? You know, the policies are out of date the second you write them these days anyway. I mean, we have the policies in my district that date 15 years ago, and I'm wondering how, it doesn't even make sense, but we can't change the policy. So I would go with, and really as a faculty member, wouldn't you rather have best practices than some dictate? Yeah.
I just want to say one more thing. It doesn't apply to any tools that you have up here, but there's a shift happening right now with a lot of the 2.0 type dish tools, where we're starting to see, as we're starting to see more evidence and data showing that they're becoming viable for shifting and transforming pedagogy. You know, tools like VoiceThread, Vicious Spaces, tools like that, they're building LTI integrations that work really effectively with LMSs. And what that typically requires is for an institution to adopt them at a site-wide level. Now, I hear from a lot of faculty. I have a blog about teaching with emerging technologies, and I've authored a book on the topic, and I have a lot of faculty come to me and say, oh, I really wish I could do that, but my institution won't pay for that license. And so I just think that there should be kind of just as part of this conversation, an awareness that as these tools become more popular, I think it's really important to be having a bigger conversation around campus and thinking about what tools are being used and who's paying for what out of their own pocket.
Michelle, there's another benefit to getting the entire institution on board with the use of these tools instead of pretending that nobody's doing them and paying for them out of pocket. But if you get a site license, you can negotiate with the vendor and change, you can have your very own terms of use for your college that all the scary parts can be removed. Because of the almighty dollar, they want your site license money. They will work with you, and you can, because you don't want the bogus generic general public terms of use for YouTube or whatever. You want the one that's for campuses that you can tailor. So but getting to that point is difficult, but it might be worth it. If you get enough of your faculty who all want VoiceThread or who all want Dropbox or whatever it is, it's worth it. Go ahead and get a negotiated site license.
But the option of better integration.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But then, of course, we need the tech support for the people who are using the tools. Yeah. Thank you very much. You've been great. Thanks, Stacy.